Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on the arts of records requests, tips, tricks, and insights from the front lines. My name is Brendan Locke, Marketing Manager here at Reveal, and I will be your event producer for today's webinar. In today's session, we'll be listening in on a conversation between industry experts as they talk about the primary obstacles associated with public records requests, the strategies for transitioning from a complex, time-consuming process to a streamlined approach, and the selection of appropriate technology for managing data collection and the analysis of complex records requests. But before we get started, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. A common question that we always get asked when we do our webinars is, will this webinar be recorded? And yes, it will be recorded and it will be shared with everyone via email a day after the webinar. And it will also be available on our website. We also will have the chat function available. So if you have any questions, please submit them in the chat and we will gather the questions up, put them together in a blog, and send that back out to you guys with your answers shortly after this webinar is complete. Again, this webinar is not product focused, but if you are interested in learning about the Reveal product, there is a demo button on the top right-hand corner of your Goldcast screen, which you can click and access our recording or access a demo to Reveal's different technologies. And with that, it is my great pleasure to turn this webinar over to our presenters, our moderator, George, and our guest speakers, Jordan and Sylvia. George, over to you.
Brendan, thank you very much. I am George Sosha. I head up brand awareness at Reveal. And we have with us today as guests, first, and both of you, you'll have to correct me if I get the pronunciation of names wrong. Mine's always mispronounced. But Sylvia Bermudez, who is clerk of the board at, and this again, Coachella Valley Water District. And then Jordan Allel, there we go, who is general counsel at Tempe Tri-District Legal Services. I'd like us to start out with each of you telling me a little bit about who you are, what your roles are within your institution, what your day-to-day work life is like. Jordan, why don't we start with you, and then we'll switch to you, Sylvia.
Sure. Thanks, George. So, as you said, my name is Jordan Allel, and I'm the general counsel for the Tempe Tri-District Legal Services, which is a very small intergovernmental agreement between 3 school districts in Tempe, Arizona. And we represent about 55 schools, about 40,000 students, give or take, and about 5,500 employees across the 3 districts. So a lot of people, a lot of issues. Day to day, I like to think of myself as a disorganized firefighter. I jump from task to task and just put out fires. I like to think that there's a plan when I come into work in the morning, and unfortunately, a lot of times the plan is exactly the same at the end of the day because I've just jumped from one emergency to another. Our legal office itself is just myself and a legal assistant. So we're a real streamlined operation, just the 2 of us as in-house, but we do work with outside counsel for larger projects. So a lot of things, if we're involved in a lawsuit or a major transactional work, we have a kind of group of outside counsels that will spread work around too. But that's kind of how we do things in Tempe.
Sylvia, how about you?
Hi, as you mentioned, my name is Sylvia Bermudez. I work with Coachella Valley Water District. We're a water district out in the Palm Desert area. As you mentioned, Coachella, we're known for the Coachella Festival that's annual, where we get 150,000 folks that come in for a 2-day weekend. Coachella Valley Water District offers a variety of water services. We provide domestic, which is drinking water. We do replenishment into the aquifer. We also provide canal irrigation water. We do non-potable, just a variety of different things. We're an agency of about 580-ish, somewhere in there, just a little under 600. 600 employees. My role as clerk of the board is, there's two primary roles, I guess I would say, is one is I work with the board of directors, ensuring that our public meetings are agendized, noticed correctly, and all that goes into that legal stuff. And then the second part of it is obviously the records management portion of it. I am considered the custodian of records for the agency, so manage 22 million plus records that we have digitally. And then in addition to a warehouse of records where we have the actual old historical paper copies of records and so forth. So in that falls obviously PRAs, public records requests, that have definitely increased over the years. So as Jordan mentioned, that I always have a plan and I have a schedule at the start of every morning, and I look at my calendar every day before I get to work, and somewhere about half hour or 10 hour in, everything changes. Because you never know what comes up, whether it's I'm being served with a subpoena or a summon, or this PRA comes in, or we have to have a special meeting of our elected board. And so it always fluctuates. And again, as Jordan mentioned, at the end of the day, I have to go back and say, okay, what did I actually accomplish that was on my agenda for today? And what is getting pushed over until tomorrow? Or what do I have to stay late to get done before I can leave at the end of the day?
Well, given the variability that the two of you face, are there any types of data or records requests that you do receive on a regular basis? Sylvia, let's start with you.
Sure. We get, I would say, the regular every day we can expect to receive at least a dozen or so are for utility services like as-built maps and so forth. We get those from developers, from cities, from individuals looking to make changes to build a house, anything like that. So I would say we can get anywhere from 12 to maybe 20 of those a day. And those are the easy ones. Those are very easy to process. And, we know where they go to, we know what we're looking for, and what we are able to provide. So I love those. I don't mind getting several of those a day, but it's usually the ones that are a little bit more challenging, that require a lot more time and attention to, that tend to take up most of my time.
Well, what do the more challenging ones look like?
Those are usually the ones that have to deal with customer data. We've in California the last couple of years, luckily we're out of it, at least for now, a drought. So there was a lot of inquiries into water usage, customer data, that is essentially not disclosable for us. So a request for different information where you have to run varied report, and then you have to go through review and redact. And a lot of that is, previously it was a very manual, labor intensive process that used to take me hours and hours. Sometimes it's those large requests that say everything and anything and all. So that is emails, voicemails, text messages, notes, sticky notes, anything of that has to be reviewed. I'll give you, for a while there, I was processing PRAs that we would start with 10, 12,000 emails. And then you have to go through some sort of, review elimination process. These can be considered responsive, these are not. And then that's kind of the first phase. Then you go into, okay, what's disclosable information in that? And then once you can finally find out, then the redaction part of it starts. So those are the ones that kept me up a lot of nights, and had to work some weekends to get through those.
Yeah, Jordan, how about you? What have data and records what sort of data and records requests do you receive on a regular basis?
Yeah, thankfully we don't get 12 a day. I think my clients would have lost their mind a long time ago, but we get the ones we get most regularly are from groups like, there's a group called Open the Books. I don't know if Sylvia has gotten anything from them, or these vendor periodicals, I want to say, that want a lot of our payment information to various contractors, and they want to see who we're contracting with through our procurement, and who our vendors are, and what we're spending. And those tend to be, some of them are commercial, which gives us some flexibility on how we respond, and some of them claim at least to be non-commercial, and they just want to open the eyes of the public to how your money is being spent. And, we get to fight about how much of that is public information and how we're going to produce it. We do get a lot of student records requests, and those have very specific rules under federal law, depending on who is making the request. Parents under federal law have certain rights to records, and our state has actually expanded in the last 2 years those rights significantly to things that we previously would say were not educational records that we produce, to things that we do have to produce, which has really increased the work we're doing both at the site level, because it's collecting a lot of information from teachers that maybe isn't centrally stored the way emails would be, to the traditional educational records, which we could kind of control more centrally. So we do a bit of everything. I'd say the easier ones are email requests, even though they can be pretty large in scope. And the more difficult ones are when they really want just large amounts of data. We have one group in particular that's constantly wanting to see our curricular materials. And, especially the high school district, if you're saying we want all of your social studies curriculum, well, we offer 75 different courses. So which of those courses, and what do you mean by curricular materials? Because it's a lot of PowerPoints that they end up asking us to go through. So
yeah, how have you handled requests in the past? What sort of processes do you follow? What challenges have you encountered?
I'll start.
Yeah, let's start with you, Jordan.
Sure. It was haphazard, especially across the 3 districts. You had all 3 districts that operate differently, despite the fact that they've had consistent legal counsel for 20 years now. They're different systems, they're different servers, they're different individuals in charge who are getting the requests. So, for instance, one of the districts would do their email search, because that's primarily what we're looking at, I think. And they would put it all in a PDF and send me a series of PDF files to look at, and based on search terms, and we could redact and review. Wasn't the worst process, probably not the best. I had one district that would do their email search and just send me PST files for each search term. And that's it. And we open it in Outlook and go one by one through Outlook, looking at documents and trying to determine what's responsive and what's not. And then, the third was kind of a mixture between the two. They would tend to get me the individual emails, drop them in a shared drive, and then you get to click on them one at a time. And they'd open, you'd say responsive, not responsive. And they really weren't redactable. The hardest part about it was I was in a position where I was withholding certain documents because maybe the attachment had something that I didn't want to produce because there was some legal advice in there. A lot of it I could have produced, but I had no way to redact the one little bit that was confidential. So I just withhold the whole document and say, all right, you're not getting any of this because I don't have a way to, unless I'm going to physically print everything, physically redact and make copies. And we're too small an operation for that. But, so very inefficient, very inconsistent. And depending on who got the request, sometimes it wasn't consistent. Even at the same district, 2 different people maybe would get the request and look at it in a different way or ask different questions. So we kind of went all over the place, I would say. And at least one of the requests, and this is what led me to kind of pull my hair out and say we need to find a better solution. It was such a large request that eventually I had to send it out to an outside law firm because I had practiced in private practice. I knew there were programs that can organize large quantities of data, and I didn't have access to it. And I said, I just need someone to do this for me because we're never getting through this request otherwise. So,
Sylvia, has it been historically a similar situation for you when it comes to how you've handled
I feel like
records and
Jordan
data
was saying
requests?
my story. Yeah, I think Jordan was saying my story to a lot of extent. I started with the district in 2016. And when I started here, it was a very, it wasn't organized. The requests would come in and they would just go depending on what it was. It's like, oh, this goes to engineering, this goes to finance, this goes to HR. And then it was never really looked at again. There was the expectation that the department who it was forwarded to would take care of it. And so that just made me very uncomfortable. And so I centralized the request. And also what I found in that is that staff was not identifying every request as an actual PRA request. They were just saying, oh, here's a request for information, and weren't actually documenting it. When I started, I think they claimed we would get 30 PRAs a year. And I said, no, that can't be accurate. And sure enough, it wasn't. They've definitely increased over the years. I want to say we probably went from 80 to 100 at that time to where now we easily get into 400, 500 a year sometimes. It just depends. And those are more like the regular day-to-day, very easy to answer maps requests, utility requests, those types of things. That doesn't really take into an account maybe the dozen or so that I receive that are a little bit more detailed, larger, that require a lot of time. But so the request would come in, again, it was distributed out, never saw it again. Now, and then I thought I upgraded. We went to and actually created a spreadsheet where we actually tracked and logged and numbered every request, and then identified, the key department and the staff member that it was assigned to. We included a deadline date. We started doing everything via email. So the email would go out to the department. So let's say engineering, it goes to engineering and it says, here's a request for this particular document or these records. Do you have anything? And then with the deadline is to submit back to me by a certain date. We did everything. We followed up via email. So sometimes it could take 15, 16 emails back and forth, requesting information or receiving information, particularly when there were multiple departments that were involved. If I had to get environmental and engineering and say facilities and so forth. So now I'm trying to juggle 50 different emails, trying to remember who sent me what and where is it, and trying to organize that. And so forth. So it was definitely very time-consuming, labor-intensive. It was inconsistent, as Jordan mentioned, because a lot of departments, just the way they provided information was different. And so I kind of streamlined the process a little bit, created some general response templates. If we have the documentation and and everything is being provided, here's our standard response. If there was information that needed to be redacted or withheld, then there was a different response, and it indicated the appropriate government code sections to notify the individual what information was not disclosable and why it was not, and so forth. So did that, and that definitely helped the process to streamline it, created a little bit more consistency. And then, but we did that for a few years. And then recently, obviously, we moved to more of a platform that allowed us to upload all the requested information. Like I said, I had somewhere it was thousands and thousands of emails. Jordan mentioned getting PDF versus PST files, the same thing. I'd get, 15 different PST files, some with 1,000, some with 200 emails, some with 4,000. And I would have to go one by one and first identify what, if anything, was attorney-client privilege, kind of move those to the side, and then say, okay, these are not responsive emails, these are not business related, kind of remove those, and then get down to a number that these are the responsive emails. And then you start reviewing for what, if any, information do I need to redact and so forth. And I was fortunate in some cases because as Jordan mentioned, sometimes the only answer is to print it and manually redact it. And I did have to do that for many records. But I have a team of folks that allow me that can provide that support for me. So it would be like, okay, here's 1,000 pages, and these are the key terms or the words or the information that we have to redact. And when you start redacting with a black marker, essentially, and so forth, and then kind of tagging, trying to indicate what that information is that we redacted so that we can then include that in our response. So yeah, like I said, many nights, many weekends, sometimes spent going through and reviewing information, doing the redaction and so forth. So happy to say that now I can upload a PST file with 5, 6, 7,000 emails, and in a matter of a couple of minutes, I can go through the entire process and kind of go about my day. And so,
as the two of you talk about what you have had to do in order to respond to these requests, it just sounds more and more complicated and challenging to me. Sylvia, if you could, why don't you talk a little bit more first, and then I'll switch to Jordan about how you go about handling records requests today, and how that differs, how the process has improved for you.
sure. So again, when I first started, I like I said, I feel like I progressed in the process over the years now, kind of more to a point where I'm actually happy with the success we've been able to get to from previously. But so now we have an online portal. So requests for records are submitted and I'm not sure how it is in Arizona, but in California, while we can suggest and offer the platform, but individuals still have the ability to make a request verbally, in writing, via email, and so forth. So we do have a few of those that I still get a call or I still get an email or something, and they don't want to use our portal, and we still accommodate those, but they're very far and few. I think most people have really enjoyed the online platform. It's much more convenient, and it's very user friendly. So an individual will submit an online request through our portal. It comes to us, we receive a notification. The request is then assigned to a department and to staff, depending on what the request is, the type of records it's assigned. And then the individuals from each department, we have liaisons for every department. So the liaisons will receive an email, a notification that says you have a new request. They're able to review it, provide notes if they so choose to, upload the documents if they have them, or indicate that there's no records. And then that our portal now, the clerk's office then receives a notification that there is either documents have been uploaded, no records, whatever that response may be. We go through, we review it. We identify if the information that is requested and has been provided is fully disclosable, if there's anything that needs to be redacted or perhaps not subject to disclosure because of some attorney-client privilege or customer usage. Like I said, those usually, anything with customer data is not disclosable and not subject to release. So we go through, we review it. We will tag all responsive records, any redaction if necessary. And then we just send an email to the requester that says, here are your records, access through here, and then we close out the request.
It sounds like it could not be more of a night and day difference between what you had been doing and what you can do now.
Absolutely. Just the amount of time that it takes staff now to complete. Staff probably completes 3 times as many PRAs in the same amount of time that it used to take them to complete just a handful. Also, again, the consistency, the efficiency in it is it's remarkable. I love that we can easily go in and look at a request, and we have everything, the history of each individual request from the moment it was received to the moment that it was closed. And many times a requester will say, I didn't receive your email, and I can go in and look and say, oh no, you did receive it. You actually opened it on, Tuesday at this time and so forth. And I'm like, please check your emails or so forth. Or it's just everything is there. It's so convenient. I'm not having to look through a spreadsheet, go back and read through an email, look through notes. Oh, do I have to do this? Everything is in one place. And so, yeah, it's amazing.
So Jordan, how about you? How do things differ now versus what you did before?
Yeah. Like Sylvia said, we have portals and we encourage everyone to use the portal. Sometimes we run into a parent or an entity, one reporter in particular, who just refuses for God knows what reason. It's very simple. But once we get the request in, depending on which district, we have a public records specialist at each district who will take it, review it, and then send it usually to me for review first before we start collecting information, just to see if it's information that in general we can produce. If it's a commercial request, there's some extra steps we get to go through. But once we have that, and then it's, figuring out what the search terms are going to be, if it's student related, if it's a vendor related issue, connecting with IT, asking them to go through our system, our email or our shared drives, and create the PST or the Google Mail, the GML file, I think it is, that will upload into the Reveal or Logical, as I think of it still, software. And then, I'll usually sit down with my legal assistant right at the beginning and we'll say, all right, so here's the request, here's what we're going to look for, and we'll create some tags if there are any beyond the default that we think we might need. And one of the tags we always do is a Jordan review tag. And really, once we kind of look through a couple of documents together and get a feel of, all right, this is responsive, this is probably not responsive, I generally say hands off and I turn it over to my assistant, and she's gotten very proficient at kind of getting through, making redactions, on the go, tagging things that she wants me to review. And I'd say within a day or two, she's getting back to me and saying, all right, I've been through all of these documents. There's about a dozen for you to go in and just review. And, I'll put my eyes on it. We'll make some calls on whether they're responsive or not. And, once we've gotten those things done, create the PDF, download, send it back out to the requester. And we've really taken it from weeks or even months to respond to certain requests to days, if not hours, depending on the scope. And there are always going to be the weird ones. And like I said, Arizona has made it so that parents in particular have a lot of access to teacher notes, psychologist notes, things of that nature that normally I would never even think to ask because that's beyond the scope. And Arizona has made it clear it's for parents in particular, these are responsive. So that has been a new wrinkle to the process, and getting individuals to scan their notes to us, and we'll upload those scans, those PDFs, right into the process and add them in. So it's definitely night and day, like you said, George. I never want to go back to how we used to do it. I think I still have some rogue PST files floating around on my laptop that are just sitting there from past requests, and it's like, please go away. But yeah, it's great.
What was the transition like going from how things had been to what you're doing currently with Logical?
It was pretty easy, especially my one of the districts. It's been super easy. We got, I will say, we have the youngest of our public records analysts at that district, and she adopted the tech super fast. And she was like, oh, I can just click here, upload, and then you'll do work. Yeah, she was all over it. The other two districts, maybe a little slower. I think one district in particular just gets fewer requests overall. So with them, sometimes it's been a little bit of, no, we have the system. You don't have to keep doing this the way you were doing it. Just upload it and let's get going. But sometimes they get one where it's really, I need 3 communications. And I'll say, all right, if it's really just 3 communications, you don't have to upload it into Logical. I'll forgive you this time.
A one-time pass. Huh?
That one-time pass. But I've told her, I said, even if it's just 20 emails, I'm telling you, it's more efficient. We will get it. We will create a PDF. And as soon as they get comfortable, our transition in our office was super quick. You know, there's been 1 or 2 times where I've gotten stuck in a filter or something. I remember once calling tech support and saying, I need an undo button. I have clicked something incorrectly and I have lost a document I need to find. But
hopefully you got help.
I got help, and they're always there. And I feel bad because they'll start, I don't know if Sylvia's ever experienced this, but I'll be in the little help chat and we'll be chatting and they'll solve the problem and I'll do the problem. And then because I'm a disorganized firefighter, I'll run off to put out a fire. And the poor person's in the chat saying, is there anything else you need? Is there anything else you, and it'll be 2 hours later and I will come back. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. We are good. We're good. It worked perfect. Thanks. But yeah, no, for us in the legal office in particular, we loved it. We didn't really have any issues making the transition. And we just said, thank God we're not clicking on individual PDFs or emails or going through a PST file one by one in Outlook.
How about for you, Sylvia, the transition? What has it been like?
It was very easy. I think the staff members that utilize the system, at first there's always hesitation, and with any new software, any new platform, there's always that learning curve that everybody is fearful of. But I think this was so user-friendly. After a couple of demos and going in and spending time with staff and getting them to use it, we kind of did a few tests before we actually started fully utilizing it. And they loved it. Staff was just found how easy and convenient it was. Oh, I can just upload this here. I can, you know, for me and for a few, it was the multitasking where you can upload things, kind of step away, come back, upload a couple of other things and finish that off. And you don't lose your spot in a sense, right? You don't forget where you were at. If you upload something twice, it doesn't matter. The system's going to catch that. That was a really one of the kind of easy sells for folks, because sometimes they, you know, before it was email. So I'd get an email that says, hey, did you get this? And I'm like, I don't know, let me go back and look, and things of that nature. Now I'm like, just upload everything. I don't care if you upload it twice, just upload it. The system's going to sort through it. We'll identify any duplicates, you know, and so it's been very, very easy. Staff definitely recognizes the benefit from it, how the time saving in it. So yeah, it's been very, very easy to convince staff to utilize the system.
So there's time saved, presumably money saved as well. There's the ease of use, not having to worry about loading things twice. What other benefits have you seen with this switch?
I would say one is the consistency, ensuring for me, it's important that we're consistent in our process, that what we're providing, what we're considering to be a record that's being provided to this requester is the same that's being provided to the next one. So for us, it's brought a lot of consistency, efficiency, as you mentioned, both in the time saved, which equates to dollars for us, right? I don't have to have staff working on this. It's opened up their ability to work on other things, right? So that, but for me, it's just been the consistency and ensuring that there's no, well, it's preventing errors as well. I'm sure that what I'm sending is redacted, that I've caught everything, right? If it's a customer account number, I know that that customer account number is redacted throughout all documents that I've tagged to be responsive. So it's a peace of mind that I don't know if you can actually put a dollar amount on that when you're processing these.
Jordan,
Yeah.
how about for you?
I have to agree with Sylvia. That consistency piece is a big one, and we didn't have it even in the same document requests, just because of how many hands were on something, and I think back to I always laugh about you'll get an email string and you'll redact something, and then you'll see the same email string. And it's like, I saw this already. It's responsive, but I redacted something. What did I redact exactly? And now it's, the dedupe process takes that away. Like, I don't have to think about it's like, am I being consistent between documents? Because nothing makes you as a professional look less professional than producing the same document twice in different ways. And I know I've done it. I know I've done it more than once. And using logical, I know I'm not doing that because I'm only producing one copy of the same document. The efficiency, can't even imagine going back to a system like we used to have. Just the days and hours and weekends and nights and whatever we were doing to finish requests and to try to be timely. And in Arizona, I don't know if it's the same in California, public records are supposed to be produced promptly. And that's a non-defined term. And I have argued with certain requesters that if you request 50,000 emails and every email about a topic for 6 years, prompt might be a year from now or 2 years from now, just because of where it falls. But you don't feel good about giving that response, even though it's accurate. So the fact that we can turn those productions around in what I would consider a prompt manner has given me peace of mind, for sure. And again, the redaction consistency, making sure we're not releasing student information that we shouldn't be, that check on everything, I really appreciate.
As you went through the experience, the process, the journey of deciding that maybe you needed to do something different, looking at options and ultimately settling on and then implementing logical, were there challenges, any particular challenges you had to overcome?
For us, it was really, there's a procurement process as a public entity. So there was looking at various options and just making sure we could, go to our procurement officer and say, yes, this is the best option. This is why it's the best option. This is going to be the cost, and we're under certain thresholds, so we don't have to do a competitive closed bidding process, which probably would have derailed everything because no one wants to go through that much work, regardless of how much time I'm saving them. But getting it in front of my public records people, because I was sold pretty quick. I knew we had a problem. I knew we needed to find a solution. But being able to bring in one of my public records people, and they're the ones who actually cover the majority of the cost, and having that person buy in immediately. She looked at the system and said, yeah, no, I'll kill for this system. Like, just for the uploadability, the fact that she didn't have to go into Outlook and delete emails one at a time. She was headlining it, and saying like, no, you will take this product from my cold dead hands. So that was helpful, from my perspective. Certainly in getting the transition done. So
how about you, Sylvia? Challenges, barriers, hurdles along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. Jordan touched on one of the primaries as public agencies. Sometimes we do have additional steps that we have to take. I was fortunate as well that we also did not have to go out to an actual RFP or close bids. I did, though, have to demo other systems, which I usually do anyhow. I'd like to see what else is out there. So went through a couple of different demos and, and then went through the cost portion of it. And was fortunate that we were able to select Logical Reveal. I think they were still Logical when we signed without having to go through those additional hurdles. My general manager was very supportive when I went to him with this because I think he knew how much time we spent, myself included, because sometimes there's certain requests where they're a little bit more sensitive in nature where I don't necessarily have all staff participating in it. So I would do a lot of those myself. And, he go to leave for the evening and he's like, why are you still here? And I'm like, oh, I'm working on this PRA request. I said, going through, I have, so many emails to go through. So he was very understanding of that and recognized. There's also the benefit from where we've had some requests that have come in that have been part of anticipated or existing litigation where they're using it through like a discovery process. So in the past, we would have to send, the request out to external or outside legal. And the cost with that associated with having a law firm review and do these things because we didn't have the ability, we didn't have the software at the time to be able to sort through and identify, go through that. So, that part was an easy sell for me. The cost and the benefit, kind of the return of investment on that was easy. And again, staff, once they saw it and they were able to demo it and see how quickly they could review and sort through and upload, and we didn't have 20 emails going back and forth, and they loved it. Same thing. And I just don't know how they would, I don't know that they would want to go back to anything else now. As I mentioned, there was always a little bit of hesitation, but I think once they actually got their hands on it and were able to see it and use it, there's no going back.
And it's interesting, Sylvia, you mentioned outside counsel, because one of the things I didn't anticipate even using Logical for, but we have, is communicating with outside counsel and collecting documents for external investigations or matters that we're dealing with outside counsel, and just the ease of being able to add an outside counsel person as a user to a certain project to say, like, I need this attorney to have access to these documents, and this is just, I can keep them there, she can access them, she can go through them, she can find what she needs, and I don't need to be directly involved anymore. That's been another way that we've been able to use the product that I didn't even anticipate when we started. So,
well, yeah, and then to that, Jordan, it eliminates the need to create an additional record that somehow is maintained or managed. Right, because if not, you're having to create, either for us it's share file, we're creating these links or we're sending emails. I'm emailing all these documents now. They can just log in and access all the information there, and I don't have to worry about additional emails, creating more records to manage than I need to. We also utilize it for litigation holds. We've started to use that for the litigation holds, so that helps as well, because that was also a very manual kind of process, and it left the opportunity for errors and inconsistencies and so forth. So now using the litigation hold, using it for the litigation holds has also been kind of a game changer for us.
Have you as well, Jordan, been able to use it for litigation hold or not?
we did briefly, because we had a case where we had received a litigation hold. And unfortunately, just because of the size of what they were asking us to save and what our outside counsel said we should hold on to, I think, and I've told my IT, I said, stop trying to be so narrow. Like, we have this software now, we can get in there and dedupe and go through things. They ended up uploading 37 gigabytes worth of data for one project,
Mm.
and we have a 50 gigabyte project cap. So I got the call from my account manager saying, "You've gone over." I said, "We did? We've never come anywhere close." And it's like, "Oh, we have a 37 gigabyte project." Oh, okay. So we offloaded that. But we had it, you know, we knew what it was, and we had it in one spot, so we dropped it onto another shared drive.
Right.
I'm sure if we had a smaller case, we would use it for that. But
So it wasn't a function of the technical limitations, but rather the price of using it.
yeah, it was it was the advantage that we have of not telling IT to do such narrow search terms came back and bit us for once, because they just grabbed everything involving this one employee, and that employee had been with us for a long time, it turned out. So.
Yep. As you know, for folks who are listening who might be contemplating going along a path similar to what you two have followed, any words of wisdom, any advice? Sylvia, let's start with you.
Oh gosh, I have to tell you that I constantly, in any work conversations that I have with neighboring agencies and so forth, I talk about logical reveal all the time, the amount of time it has saved me. I would just say the return of investment on this thing is 100% there. Everything from the cost, you know, when you look at for public agencies, it's the cost, right? The cost of the purchase. And I always say, okay, well, if on these large ones, how much time is staff spending on these requests? Are you having to pay overtime for these employees and so forth? And if not, if you're having to have legal go in and do all these things, how much are those invoices from outside legal costing you, right? So you just look at that from that perspective. And then, you know, then I go into, I think I've said it so many times, but it's the consistency to ensure that the response that the responsive records that I'm producing are going to be consistent no matter. Because you may have this in certain situations where you have a requester that comes in and requests this, especially if they're somehow tied to a litigation, and they may come back in 6 months and ask for the same request just to see if you're going to produce the same exact data. And that has happened to us on more than one occasion. So just ensuring that I know that the information that I'm releasing is going to be consistent. I don't have to stress that I inadvertently forgot to redact, you know, one customer data information on this one email that I caught on the other 100 emails and so forth there. So that there in itself, again, is just probably the 2 or 3 things that allow me to kind of say, hey, this is so worth it. You're going to save time and money on that part. And that's obviously very important to a government agency, but also ensuring that your responses are going to be consistent for the most part, that you're going to feel comfortable that what you're providing is what you need to be releasing, and that you're not disclosing information that it should have been redacted or something to that. So just that peace of mind as well.
Jordan?
Ditto to everything Sylvia just said. And it's just completely changed the way we look at public records requests. I wouldn't say I look forward to getting public records requests more than I did, because they can be very challenging, and they can be still very time consuming, but I don't worry about, are we talking 50,000 records? I mean, I worry, but I don't. 50,000 was a number that was unfathomable in the past without logical. Now 50,000 is, it's doable. It's not a day's work, but it's a manageable process. And to any one, I mean, I talk it up to every in-house counsel. There's only a handful of us in Arizona, but I think a few of us are using the software, and, you know, I talk it up to everyone who's not, that you have to be doing this, because we don't have the time. You don't have the resources, and you don't want to be spending it on outside counsel to do this work. We're all facing, you know, financial challenges as public schools, and spending that money on public records requests gets old fast. So it's an essential part of what we do, I think. And we will be continuing with Logical as long as I'm in this position for sure. And I'm sure beyond.
And I would add, Jordan, I don't know if you've seen it, but for us, we have seen a steady continued increase in our requests. So I don't see requests going away. I don't see that this is something that's going to, slowly kind of decline. I anticipate, and I do see this, that the requests are going to continue to come. The numbers are going to continue to increase. And I would say the complexity of the request you're going to continue to see that. You're going to see these, any and all now that, and I don't know about Arizona, but for us, it's been a few years, but emails and texts and voice messages are all subject now to disclosure. So I'll get a request that says any and all communications on, agency and private devices. So the private devices are handled a little bit separately, obviously, but when you start to look at that and the complexity, now I'm like, oh gosh, I have to review voice messages, or I have to review this, and being able to, the transcript, we didn't even get into that part, but being able to review and redact audio or video. For us, we have a lot of times, most of our meetings are public, but in that rare situation, if there was something that had to be, kind of redacted from an audio or video component, the fact that you can do, like, I don't even know how I would have done that before. I have no idea how we would have been able to manage that. I don't think we probably would have just said no. That voicemail is not, subject to disclosure because there's personal, conversations in that or personal information in that voice message. But the fact that you can do that now, and, I know I definitely don't have the request that some of our neighboring agencies or cities particular, but like you, Jordan, I sell it up to anybody and everybody. I'm constantly saying, hey, this is what I use. Or it's kind of a nerd that I am, but I'm like, I'll bring it. Like, how do you handle your PRAs?
Sounds like Friday dinner party discussion.
I agree, Sylvia. We are not going to see a decrease in public records requests anytime soon. And unfortunately, as a school district, we're not going to see any less scrutiny on what we're doing anytime soon. So yeah, I usually send out my annual things you don't want to put in an email type thing. Just because we get enough public records requests, and just be conscious of that. And yeah, there's a lot of scrutiny, and I don't see it decreasing anytime soon. And with the ease, the portal is great because it makes our lives easy, but it makes their lives easier too. And so we definitely have more people with more eyes on us. And some of them are really well connected too. So yeah.
Any final words of wisdom, either one of you?
I guess I would just say, start off, I work for Reveal, but start off with a demo. If you're unsure, just, really get a demo just to see, because I think it's one thing to hear it, and obviously that helps. But when you start to kind of see it for yourself, and sometimes you're going through the demo and you're like, oh, wow, it can do that. Oh, wow, I didn't even know that was an option. And that was me for the audio and video. I'm like, you can redact video in this thing, or you can redact audio. I just, having that, the transcription, and being able to go in and identify, yes, this is these are the words or whatever it may be that need to be, redacted, was just, it was remarkable. So yeah, my thing is, schedule a demo, see what it could do. It won't cost you anything to at least see the benefits that Logical Reveal can offer.
Yeah, I think the button's up here somewhere, up right.
Somewhere.
Yeah, click the button. Because I honestly, I'll do a training on a quarterly basis or an annual basis with the folks just to see what's new. but half the time it's not even a new feature. It's just one I forgot or I didn't even realize was there. And the value of each feature to filter, to dedo, all of these things, the audio-visual redactions, that they're invaluable. And the fact that the product keeps evolving and getting better and better with, smart tagging or smarter redactions, I can't say enough. And it costs nothing to take a look, and you don't know what you're missing until you see it.
Well, Sylvia, Jordan, thank you very much for joining us today. Sylvia Bermudez is clerk of the court, or clerk of the board. Almost made it through.
Almost.
Is clerk of the board at Coachella Valley Water District. Jordan Alel is general counsel at Tempe Tri-District Legal Services. I am George Socia with Reveal. Thank you all for joining us. And once again, Sylvia, Jordan, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.